Hello everybody and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're discussing one of the best tree skiing resorts in the country, Steamboat. Steamboat is good at a whole lot of different things, but we'll start off slow with some background and discussion of the lower mountain in this part. The following three parts will discuss the upper mountain areas, home to the more difficult terrain and popular Sunshine Pod, so be sure to check those out after this. With that, let's begin an Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Steamboat. Alright, let's start with a little bit of background. Steamboat is located much further north than the rest of Colorado's destination mountains. Depending on traffic, Steamboat is a 3 to 4 hour drive from Denver. However, Steamboat has another commercially served airport much closer, the Yampa Valley Regional Airport in Hayden, about a half hour away. The airport actually has solid service from some major airlines, and for ground transportation, you can rent a car or book on one of the many shuttle companies. Once in Steamboat Springs itself, there is a good free public bus system, so I tend to the latter option. Unlike many of the other major mountains in Colorado, Steamboat does not see many day trippers from the Front Range on a day-to-day basis. This means that there is a lot more lodging in and around the mountain than at others. And yes, I said in. That's because there is a massive amount of ski in, ski out at Steamboat, much more than you'll find at most other mountains. One thing you may notice about Steamboat is that its lodging is generally more expensive than at other ski towns and mountains. This is again due to the lower number of day trippers and thus higher demand for overnight lodging. Steamboat is not a standard Colorado destination in that it is a little bit more challenging logistically. For those of you driving in, my preferred parking lot is the upper knoll lot, as it's free this season and is walking distance from the lift. However, this lot often fills before lifts even spin on peak days. Your other options will then be one of two garages right in the village, or the lower knoll lot, which is cheaper but requires a shuttle ride. Over the past couple of years, Steamboat built out a project they called Full Steam Ahead. This project included a redevelopment of their base area, the construction of a base-to-summit gondola, the development of a brand new on-mountain learning center, and the opening of a major new expert-centric terrain expansion. It also included an entirely new trail map, which I initially didn't like, but am warming up to. It still has quite a few little quirks that can be difficult for those unfamiliar with the mountain to discern, which is why I'm here, but it is remarkably accurate for the amount of information it has to convey. Visually, for those of you who visited Steamboat pre-pandemic, the mountain itself has a very different feel now, especially on the lower mountain. The difference is first and foremost seen in the base area, which is where we'll start. When looking up at the mountain from the skating rink plaza, you'll see three major lifts. On the right, you have the Steamboat Gondola, which seats 8. On the left, you have the Christie Peak Express 6-pack chairlift. And even further to the left of Christie Peak is the Wild Blue Gondola, which seats 10 in its luxury cabins. Each of these has a specific purpose, and none really take you to the same place. First and foremost, those of you just learning to ski, in lessons, or escorting children to lessons will need to take the Wild Blue Gondola to its middle station, where you'll unload to access Greenhorn Ranch. The Wild Blue Gondola then continues up from its mid-station to Sunshine Peak, but that area will be discussed in Part B. The Wild Blue Gondola opens at 8 for those in ski school and those taking children up to ski school. Be sure to use the ski school lane or you won't be let on. Parents, if you're solely taking your kid up to Greenhorn Ranch for a lesson, you do not need to have a lift ticket to ride Wild Blue to its mid-station. Now, Wild Blue may seem like a good deal since it goes all the way to the top. However, while it opens at 8 for ski school, it doesn't open until 9 for the general public. The Steamboat Gondola and Christie Peak Express open at 8:30 to the public, so you'll want to go to one of those two if you're there before 9. If the goal is to get to the upper mountain, as it is for most guests, head to the Steamboat Gondola. From 10:30 onward, you are allowed to load the Wild Blue Gondola at the mid-station going uphill. Before that, you'll have to ski all the way to the base. The last upload on Wild Blue is at 3 o'clock, but you can upload Christie Peak and the Steamboat Gondola all the way right up until 4 o'clock. Between those three lifts at the base area, Steamboat has an absolutely mammoth out-of-base capacity. Nonetheless, lift lines can still build, particularly between 9:30 and 11 on peak days. Oftentimes, the Steamboat Gondola gets longer lines due to it being a closer walk, so I would highly recommend heading straight to Wild Blue if you arrive at 9 or later and intend to go to the upper mountain. Christie Peak is relatively independent compared to the two gondolas, although if lines are significantly longer at both gondolas than at Christie, Going Christie to Thunderhead was my go-to alternative before Wild Blue was built. Let's jump back over to that Greenhorn Ranch area briefly touched on earlier. Greenhorn Ranch is Steamboat's on-mountain learning area, brand new and designed with rapid progression in mind. The area has several carpets and some specific terrain features that are designed to help children learn what it feels like to stop, turn, and do other skiing functions. Those carpets and features are not accessible to the public, only to ski school. If you're brand new to the sport, there's no better way to start than by taking a Steamboat lesson. Also in the zone is the Greenhorn Ranch high-speed quad, which is open to the public. Its safety bar automatically lowers in the bottom terminal and raises in the top terminal, albeit at the last second, so don't panic. From Greenhorn Ranch, once you're confident and ready, heading down right away is a good next step. I wouldn't recommend getting back on Wild Blue and going straight to the top, which I know some people do. Right away is the runout for both Greenhorn Ranch and the Upper Mountain Greens Why Not and BC Skiway. It is a moderately wide, super gently pitched run that also doubles as access to dozens of ski-in, ski-out properties. It does get busy towards the end of the day, but it's far from the worst green I've seen. Once you've done right away once or twice, Swinger is a good bit steeper, but is typically less busy. Its entrance is right below the ski school carpets at Greenhorn Ranch. I would recommend staying away from Giggle Gulch and Shortcut, as those are the runouts for a ton of higher level terrain and are thus typically faster moving and busier. Shortcut is more of a flat road, while Giggle Gulch is a steeper but wider run. Down at the base area, it opens up to a big wide area, but there is a short section where Vogue and Shortcut's traffic comes together, so be careful in that little section. Cutting hard skiers right just after that convergence takes you down Headwall, which is quite steep and can be a rude wake-up call if you're not expecting it. If you keep to the right above the Christie Mid-Station, you'll have easier access to the Wild Blue Gondola and Christie Peak Express. If you keep left to Stampede, you'll have better access to the Steamboat Gondola. Stampede is much narrower due to the Lil Rodeo Terrain Park and has a lot more higher level skiers on it, so I recommend Wild Blue Way to all learners. Lil Rodeo has lots of small features and a small halfpipe at the end. Now, the Christie Peak does have a mid-station unload point here to access those base area greens we just discussed and the beginner terrain park, but at least regarding the green, I'd much more readily recommend going up to Greenhorn Ranch where you're separated from all the fast traffic. Up off the top, if you take an immediate left and traverse across the ridge just a touch, you'll access Sitz, a nice blue groomer. It yields access to See Me, a great black groomer, Voodoo, a mogul run, and Vogue, an extremely busy blue. All of these runs tend to get icy due to their high usage and low elevation. Sitz back here goes away from Christie Peak, joining with the bottom of Heavenly Days down in the valley. From there, on the lookers right here, you can access Lower Valley View, which is probably the steepest groomer on the mountain. It does have a bit of a run out, but that's generally not an issue since it's a fast-paced, experts-only trail. From that same little valley, you can take the Jess's Cutoff Road to get to everything we just discussed. From that, you can take Bear Claw, a groomed blue. Not sure why it's rated blue-black, as it's not all that steep. Contrary to the trail map, it continues down this looker's left side of the halfpipe, meeting up with Basher at the bottom. Basher is another great blue cruiser. If all else fails or is insanely busy, a Basher and Bear Claw lap or two via the Basher double is never a bad idea. Basher is also the lift that services the bigger terrain parks, seen here and here. While just a double chair, it rarely gets lines. Yoo-Hoo, this green road, is only accessible from Bear Claw or the Basher chairlift. As such, it's rarely busy. Lapping Yoo-Hoo via Basher isn't a bad idea for beginners. Trick Roper, formerly known as Main Drag, and Boulevard are the main routes in this area. Both are narrow, busy roads. Bigfoot is a groomer that cuts straight across them. And that just about wraps it up for the Christie Peak terrain. Now let's talk gondola. Off the top, you have access to Upper Valley View, which, while not groomed as often as the lower section, still doesn't typically have big moguls. The headliner up here, however, is Heavenly Days. Heavenly Days is quite steep for a blue and ultra popular owing to its stunning views across the valley. It often gets bumped up by the end of the day when conditions are good and extremely icy when they aren't. Nonetheless, no trip to Steamboat is complete without cruising the Days once or twice. Vertigo through Distraction and Mother Nature here are some nice mogul runs. The other primary groomer in this sector is Vagabond, which is a bit narrower than the Days and not as consistently steep, although it still has some steep pitches. I really enjoy cruising Vagabond. Betwixt is a road that runs this direction, lookers left to right, offering a cop-out from just above Vagabond's steepest section to the relatively easier lower Concentration, Between, and Eagle's Nest blues. If coming from over here, to get to Thunderhead, you'll need to keep to the right just above the top of Greenhorn Ranch onto Skedaddle. The Thunderhead Express's lines are typically just a bit shorter than those of the upper mountain quads, but I have rarely found a situation where it was worth it to jump out of line and head back to the base, so for the most part, play the hand you're dealt with when it comes to Thunderhead's lines. One of the final runs we have to discuss is Why Not, which is Steamboat's longest run. It's a mildly pitched green road that is quite tranquil, winding through forests of conifers and aspens. Like I said, it's extremely long, so be sure to take breaks, but for beginners who can't ski Heavenly Days yet, Why Not is a very solid alternative. From Why Not, you can take Flat Out or So What, both of which are very similar roads that take you to the upper mountain. Use Flat Out to access 4 Points, and So What to access Burgess Creek and Storm Peak. Finally, Surprise is a moderately pitched mogul run that isn't too popular due to how tucked away it is, coming off Vagabond. Steamboat's famous tree skiing is limited to the upper mountain, and I would advise against trying any trees on the lower mountain. Alright, one last thing. The night skiing. On Thursdays through Sundays for a majority of December, January, February, and March, the mountain reopens for night skiing from 5:30 to 8. The mountain still closes at 4, so if skiing both day and night, you'll be sitting around for an hour and a half. They take that time to re-groom the night skiing runs. For beginners, you'll only have the lowermost slopes from the Christie mid-unload. Higher level skiers have Vogue and See Me. We'll have a video coming out later this year breaking down night skiing in general, but as far as Steamboat goes, it's fairly limited. Just one green, blue, and black, all groomed. And of course, the most popular night skiing run is the Little Rodeo Park, which is also lit. Well, that about wraps it up for the lower mountain. Now go check out parts B, C, and D, all about the rest of the mountain. As always, please leave any questions down below. Thank you all for watching. All my love, I'm out.